Stefan chimes in to talk about something about Stranger Things or something. I think something about a Walter. But
Hi.
hi,
Look for Walter Collins and Walter Mitty comes up.
I mean, I'm amazed Walter White doesn't just turn up. So you know. But anyway, that
How
we are.
far of a lag do I have right now?
I do not
A
know. The
big one.
lag test. We'll do a live lag test. I'm going to count down, and then once I say one, you need to reply as fast as possible. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Now,
That's about 2 or 3 second lag test. Yeah.
dude, right, I'll reload. Do we need to start again?
Nah, because we're already live and it'll already do it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, but will you not lose my audio and recording and files and things?
Nah, it shouldn't do it. It should just
Yeah,
still
well,
record it. It'll just be slightly off.
there's only one way to find out.
Oh, for fuck's sake. He's just left to leave me alone so that he can do it. Hold on.
Hello?
Hello. Lag test. 3, 2, 1.
No.
And it's a little bit better.
Yeah,
Not
that's
much
pretty
better.
much the same.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
But
Right,
anyway,
okay.
that's fine.
We're
And
gonna solve some more mysteries.
it should still record your audio and stuff because Jake pops in and out like a madman. Before we start though,
Yeah, that's true.
I have a thing, a little thing, a teeny weeny thing to say. Before I continue just saying I've got a thing, and then people make a bad joke out of it. Apparently, there's a saying that I heard a couple of days ago where it's bored people are boring.
Bored people can be
I
boring, to be fair.
I call this absolute bullshit for some. Right? I do understand that some bored people can be boring, but boredom is what makes people look things up and learn things and do things. Like if you get bored, then most people, when they're bored, will try and find something to fill the boredom. For example, I got bored, so I watched Sharp. While watching Sharp, I thought, "Oh, those rifles look cool. I wonder like what type they are and like how accurate they really were and stuff." Ended up researching the Baker's rifle to find out that they made a smoothbore version of the Baker's rifle. To find out that which was then classed as like a smoothbore slate. It was basically so the theorized that it's so that they could make them in the factory and then just add the bits on in the rifling at a later stage. So it was mass manufacturing getting started. And then I ended up wandering into when we conquered India, and when we were over in India, we gave the Indian forces over there inferior smoothbore muskets to our British rifles, so that even if they tried to rise up, we would be 10 times more accurate and be 10 times better. So our soldiers could easily just destroy any uprising because they would have smoothbore muskets and we would have rifles.
Yeah,
To
that's
then find
interesting.
out that there was a multi-shot musket made where it was legitimately like they made a magazine musket to then just go on like a massive random thing about black powder weapons.
Was the magazine musket in the musket magazine?
No, it was basically there was a long pipe, and at each stage it had a
You,
shot
you,
and
you,
powder and
you
stuff.
missed the pun. You missed the pun there completely.
I feel like I did miss the pun.
Was the magazine musket in a musket magazine? Is what I said.
It still didn't make any sense to me though.
Right, in a musket magazine, as in a magazine, a book about muskets.
See, this is the
God
problem. It
damn
doesn't
it!
make sense to me because during the Musket time period, there wasn't magazines. That's why
No,
it
I
doesn't make
know, but
sense
I
to
was
my
taking
brain.
the mick, man.
I know, but it doesn't make sense in my brain. Okay,
It does make
shush.
sense as a pun. I didn't mean did they literally invent the magazine, take it back a few hundred years, and then put muskets in it just for the crack. I didn't expect. God Almighty. Anyway, that's interesting because
Yes, I know.
you found about India when they were part of the British Empire. I got bored
Yeah.
earlier, learned that the G spot isn't really a thing, but we'll get on to that. Also, it was almost named the Whipple Tickle, which is another fun fact. And then I found out that not related, that we are possibly at some point going to have a alliance set up with another feud that could become the second most powerful economic power. But it's basically us, New Zealand, England, Canada, and Australia. So it's basically uniting the Commonwealth minus India,
Yeah,
apart from the other Commonwealth nations, which we pretty much deal with anyway.
we still have some connection to them anyway. But
So, like I've
also,
been saying since lockdown 2019, bring back the Empire.
we're just doing it slowly by bringing back the
Yes,
Commonwealth first.
you bring back the Commonwealth first, and then you start taking over the people that don't want to be part of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's how
Because
you do
force
it. You say, would you like to join us? And if they say no, you go, right, okay, we'll come back to you later.
the reason we are in the history books is having the biggest empire, and the reason the quote exists, "The sun never sets on the British Empire," is because when you take things by force, you get into the history books, and we were the best at that.
Yeah. And
We
we
are a
managed,
tiny. How we are a tiny. For a start, how did we run India? We ran India with about 2 people. How
we
did that
did.
happen? There were so many
Because
people in India.
we had rifles that were accurate and we
Yes,
could
but
fire
they
3
weren't
shots a
so
minute, and
accurate.
then we gave.
They weren't so accurate, so that if something like 18 billion people kicked off, 2 guys could sort them out. But yeah, we still kept it under control.
It's because we turned up there with guns while they were still using swords.
Still,
Same as how the Americans ended up taking over the freaking Indians, the Plains Indians.
yeah.
They turned up with disease-ridden blankets and guns.
Kyle, the Native Americans.
The Native Americans or Native Indians or Plains Indians.
Indians. They're not Indians. They're not Indian. They're Native Americans.
When I was taught history, it was you weren't allowed to
Yes.
call them Native Americans. You had to call them Plains Indians.
No.
Oh, it's changed again.
When we were young, you had to call people coloured because calling them black was offensive. Now, if you're referring to someone of colour, you have to refer to them as someone who is black if they are black, because if you say they are coloured, that is offensive. Things change.
Things do change, and it's so ridiculous that things go back to the way they used to be. Then
Like the
go
Empire.
back, and then,
The Empire Strikes Back.
yes, bring the Empire back.
I'm fucking telling you. I'll get my geese ready.
We'll take
Anyway,
over. We're annoying.
We've got sidekicks this week to solve mysteries. We have went off on a tangent immediately.
We did immediately go off on a tangent, but we do have sidekicks to solve mysteries, and we are going to try and solve some mysteries yet again. It went so well last week that we've decided, fuck it, we're going to do it again. Also because I rambled a lot for the first week, so we didn't actually get through all the mysteries Stefan had prepared for last week. How many times can I say last week?
To be fair, I only had one more, but I have got another couple.
Yeah. So Stefan's got Grogu with him, and I've got Stitch.
Yeah, because we need sidekicks. I don't know how well I done last time, but this will definitely improve. I haven't got a spare headset to mess around with.
But there we go. So Stitch is now part of the conversation.
Right, so your choice of where to start again. You can start on Walter Collins, which apparently when you Google the mystery of Walter Collins, it tries to show you the mystery of Malta Whitty. Malta? Right, okay.
Malta Whitty.
Walter
Do you
Mitty.
mean Walter?
We can start in a lighthouse, or we can start in the middle of the rainforest, which is the one we didn't do.
Is it a lighthouse in Iceland? Because there's a lighthouse in Iceland that you literally have to climb a cliff up to get to. It's the most isolated lighthouse in the world.
Hold on, I accidentally found a pizza restaurant. That's not what I was looking for. I mean, it's called Donegal Isle, so I don't know, but I'm guessing Ireland more than Iceland.
Un momento. I will have a look.
no,
I don't know if I've actually got the name of it.
No, the Flannan Isles.
That definitely sounds Irish.
Port of Leith.
Flannan Isles.
Right, we're not going to go into that. Anyway, where do you want to start?
Let's start with a lighthouse. You can always get a good story with a creepy lighthouse, and we were playing a game the other day that featured a creepy lighthouse story. So why not? Let's go for it.
Right. So, the Flannan Isle mystery. You may have heard a little bit about this, or you may recognise some of the story. So, because it was a 2019 film was based on it called The Vanishing. Right?
Don't
So
think I've seen it, but I want to.
there was a transatlantic steamer, right, called the Arcta, that first noticed something was wrong. On its voyage to the port of Leith from Philadelphia, the Arcta passed the lighthouse on the Flannan Isles on the night of the 15th of December 1900. That's so that its light was off. After docking in Leith 3 days later, the news was passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board that something was amiss on Flannan, a mystery that was explored in the 2019 film The Vanishing. Right.
Okay.
So the board dispatched the lighthouse relief. The board dispatched the lighthouse relief tender ship Hesperus to investigate. Arriving at the island on Boxing Day, the ship's captain, Jim Harvey, sounded his horn and then sent up a flare, hoping to alert the 3 lighthouse keepers, James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur. There was no response. Disembarking from the Hesperus, relief lighthouse keeper Joseph Moore set off up one of the 160 steps to the lighthouse.
Ooh,
Three
that's a lot of
giant,
steps.
three giant black birds perched on the cliffs above him and cast their beady eyes on his progress. Reaching the lighthouse compound and entering the living quarters, Moore noticed that the clock on the kitchen wall had stopped. The table was set for a meal, but it had never been eaten, and a chair had been toppled over. A canary
Okay.
cage was the only sign of life. Returning to the eastern landing, Moore reported that his findings to the captain of the Hesperus, and Harvey sent another 2 sailors to shore, and they and Moore began looking for signs of life. So what's your initial thoughts?
My initial
The
thoughts
only
is
thing
that,
that's the only thing
right.
that's odd is that, or any sign of wrongdoing or anything like that, is that a chair's tipped over. Other than that, a clock stopped and a meal set but not eaten. That's the only thing that's odd. Other than the people on there. Other than sleeping.
I'm curious why he didn't go to the top of the lighthouse just to check if they were at the top doing some sort of maintenance on the light, because it says that he just went to the living quarters then came back down.
Well,
And
they
I'm assuming
did
the living quarters are like halfway up or like on a lower level.
be on lower level. I think probably the ground floor. I'm
Yeah.
guessing. So he basically went into the ground floor. They sounded the ship's horn, and they did send up a flare, and there was no response, no kind of indication that was anyone there. So it's not somewhere you'd want to go necessarily if something was up. Like if somebody had been in there and like 5 people had been in and murdered the 3 of them, and then were squatting in there, kind of peeking your head in the living quarters is risky enough by yourself.
Yeah, I do
And
suppose.
and if there's 3, I'm assuming it's like meant to be a rotation. So
Yeah,
one,
rotation order.
yeah. So every like what was it, 8 hours or something? Um, you're on duty if you like. But still, maybe there's stuff that 1 or 2 people can't do safely. You maybe need 3 people to do. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. But no, so far it just sounds like a typical. I don't know. It just sounds like the typical horror story thing, which is exactly why it's been made into a horror story. But it sounds like there might have been a call to action if the chair's toppled over and it would look like it was ready to be like ready for a meal. It could be there's been a call to action or there's been incidents and they've had to quickly move, but nothing suspicious so far, other
Right.
than the no answer.
So, after a thorough search of the lighthouse complex, turned up nothing but a set of oilskins, suggesting that one of the keepers at least had ventured out in just his shirt sleeves, because obviously the other 2 oilskins were missing. The men
Yeah.
turned their attention to the landing platform on the west side of the island. Here there was plenty of evidence that the island had recently been hit by a massive storm. A supply bin smashed open and its contents were strewn across the ground, despite being over 100 feet above sea level. Iron railings on the side of a path had been bent and twisted out of shape. Part of a railway track had been torn from its concrete moorings, and a huge rock that had estimated to be weighing more than a ton had been displaced. Right?
Yeah.
Turf had also been ripped from the tops of the cliffs, 200 feet above sea level, and there was no sign of the 3 keepers.
Okay.
So what had happened?
So 2 of them have went out. Well, if they've all left, which we're assuming they've all left because or went out because they're not there. 2 of them have taken the coats and stuff. 1 of them has just went out in whatever shirt he was in.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if it's a cold night, pretty bad idea.
But if it's an emergency and the other two are outside trying to do something, they're struggling and screaming for help, maybe you just run out in a thing without thinking and
yeah,
grab it.
yeah,
But
exactly.
it doesn't explain how there's stuff 100 and 200 feet above sea level. Turf ripped up from the tops of the cliffs 200 above sea level. Okay, that could be really, really, really strong winds. Um, but a supply box smashed open again could be strong winds, even though it's above sea level, could be strong winds. But then a huge rock weighing more than a ton had been displaced. It would have to pretty much be a hurricane to even move that. A railway track had been torn from its concrete moorings. Again, it would have to be pretty much a hurricane if we're going to deal with that. And then to bend an iron railings on the side of the path had been bent into a stellar shape. I don't believe there's wind strong enough to bend iron railings, like because they're thin and they're strong. I feel like to bend the iron railings, it would have to be ripped up and smacked off something, or something would have to be blown in. I suppose something could be blown into it if the rock was
It,
moving, maybe.
the
But
problem
then
is
all of that you'd expect to damage the lighthouse. Like it would at least blow the windows through or smack something off it.
possibly, but it also all depends on like one, how long ago has it taken? Because it could have damaged the lighthouse, but the lighthouse keepers repaired the lighthouse, but didn't bother repairing the iron railings or anything. It
So then where are they?
because how long ago was this? Like, how long has it
So
been
they
between
sailed
people
past no
coming to see them?
yeah, so they sailed past notice the light was off and then it was a 3 days voyage. And then they sent the
Yeah,
relief boat back, which I'm assuming could probably get there over a day or something. It's not like it's a big ship. So maybe
yeah,
4 days,
like
maybe
but
more.
like how long ago before that was it when the last people came to see the lighthouse? Because a lot of the times lighthouse people are classed as like lonely people because they don't really see people. They'll have to go to town for supplies and get supplies brought to them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like how long ago did that happen? How long has it been since someone saw those iron railings, since someone saw those railway lines and stuff? It could
Yeah.
have been that those things have been damaged over a course of like months, and it's just because nobody's gone up to see them. Nobody's seen it before, but now that the relief ships come up, he's noticing all these separate things that may have happened over the course of the past month, over the course of the past couple of months.
It still doesn't explain where they are, though. Because even if that's the case, they've been around to repair the lighthouse if wind has been smashed or whatever.
It doesn't explain where they are,
And it doesn't explain
but
why, if your supply box was smashed open and there was shit all over, once the storm had calmed down, when you're fixing things, you go and sort of your supplies and gather them up. You wouldn't just leave it there for months and think, well, that's
well,
full.
yeah,
You'd go and see what's usable.
that's the one thing that isn't explainable by oh it's happened over a period of time because the supply box has obviously been they're in a rush, they're trying to do something, they've just smashed it open, grabbed what they needed and went. So I'm I'm thinking they possibly had to go and do some sort of emergency repair, or they've had someone like call for help, and they were like someone who was on the way to Lighthouse or someone passing by, and they've had to like come and help or do something. Like there's been an emergency where like someone's been injured on a road near them or something.
Yeah, but possibly. So you think they've went to help someone potentially, and that's why it still doesn't really happen. I get it. Well, actually, this thing, actually, Kyle, it's part of the. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? The Flannan Isles. The Flannan Isles sounds like a small island set. And obviously, they've got a lighthouse. It sounds remote because they've got a boat just to move relief crews around.
Yeah,
So I don't feel like it's somewhere accessible. I don't feel like there's probably any roads at all on there. I don't think there might not even be anybody on there at all. It sounds like where there's an island big enough that it's an issue, so they've had to put a lighthouse up, and that's why there's 3 people there. So it has to be like an 8-hour rotation, and they have
right.
to look
Okay.
after each other. And they do have radio
So
contact, so if anything happened to one of them, you would expect that the other two would be in contact for emergency medic, whatever they needed. You wouldn't expect to all 3 of them be
you wouldn't, but what if it
something
wasn't
happened
one
at the
of
same time.
them? What about
Yeah.
if it wasn't one of them? Like if they just thought, okay, we can go and help this person type
Yeah, but
thing.
there's no
Like
one else there unless the ship's crashed and there's no evidence of it.
Wait,
It's just an island.
what,
There's no.
what about the railway line? Is the railway
Well,
line
that's a good
still
point.
active? Because you said the railway line was damaged. What if they were going to try and fix this railway line that was damaged because there was talk of a train coming or something going to be using the line?
I shall
Like
have a look.
and they've decided to go and have a look, go and see what's going on. They've ended up getting like distracted by something else. So, because I know if I go to one place and go and try and do one thing, I usually end up doing about 10 other things at the same time because you'll come across different things there.
Right, here we go. So the Flannan Isles are alternatively, Seven Hunters are a small island group on the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. They're approximately 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis, and they appear to take their name from Saint Flannan of the 7th century Irish preacher and abbot. So their geography is they are split into three groups. The main cluster of rocks that lie to the northeast include the two principal islands of Eilean Moor, which is Big Isle, which is approximately 17.5 hectares in extent, and Eilean Tai, which is House Isle. I apologise if I'm butchering this. To the south lie Sorey, which is the eastward isle, and Skier Tomain, while the main western outcrops. Oh, right, so it's got the name of them. Eilean Agoba, the Isle of the Blacksmith. The Isle of the Blacksmith,
As
Kyle.
as I love it. As we say, like we might be like on the border of Scotland. It does not mean we speak Gaelic or Scottish.
Yeah,
So
even though
if
it's,
we
a
butcher
lot of
names,
our
we do
words are from.
apologise.
Yeah, I do apologise. So there's also Roirum, which is a natural rock arch, and Brona Clate, which is sad sunk rock. The total land area amounts to approximately 50 hectares, so about 120 acres of land. And its highest point is 289 feet above the sea level on Eilean Moor, which is the main isle. The geology consists of dark breccia of gabbros and dolerites, including Archean I don't know. In prehistoric times, the area was covered by ice sheets. Blah blah blah. Where was it? So they still separated from the Outer Hebrides by many miles of ocean water. Steadily rising sea levels therefore reduce the land. It's possible land places for yachts. Visit Eilean Moor to the east and west, although they may be hazardous given the regular heavy swells. So there's only two places. The only two
So
places you can
access.
land are on the main island on the east and west. So that seems to be where it is. So yeah, it is. Right, yeah. So there's nothing there. There's no infrastructure there. I don't know what maybe the railway line is just a old man powered railway that is just around maybe them islands, so that once they get stuff to this main island, they can move stuff around or move people around without having to have boats and
So
things.
it's just like an interlink, yeah.
I think so because that way outside the Outer Hebrides. I mean, if you can see, if it
I
doesn't want you to
cannot
see.
because it is,
Right, so you've got main Scotland here,
yeah,
here in Scotland, and then can you see the little red bit? That's out. So the Outer Hebrides is the main bit on here. So
right,
this bit of islands here is the Outer Hebrides, and then you see this tiny little dot here.
yeah.
That's the Flannan Isles.
What are they called? Flanagan Isles.
Flannan. So you can see there how that tiny little red dot to the side is where they are from the Outer Hebrides. So they're,
Okay,
they're
one
like
sec.
literally not linked anything in the middle of nowhere. There's only two places you can. So if you look up Flannan Isles and just click on the Wikipedia, you'll get the picture up. You'll be able to see it's a tiny little dot compared to the Outer Hebrides, which are pretty small islands anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Share screen. Okay, so yeah, so it's basically the Flannan Isles are this little set of isles here, and then they are literally.
So I feel like the rail track is just to interlink them because it seems like the only safe place to land a ship is on either side, east and west of the main island. So maybe it's just to move
Yeah,
stuff around the small islands.
it's literally some small islands off off the coast of an actual island that's off the coast of Scotland, which is part of a bigger island. So it ain't big. And there's the lighthouse. So yeah, it ain't very big at all.
Yeah.
I love the old, like, we've got these tiny little islands. Okay, they're off the coast of Scotland. Okay, they're at the far westerly point. Okay, we're gonna shove a lighthouse on them. Why? They're not anywhere near land. Because they might crash into the islands. The tiny little islands off the coast of actual bigger island. Why not put it? Because why not? We're going to isolate some people there and make them live on this tiny little island.
Because it is port. The support these were going to, they were basically coming from Canada across to Scotland. I'm guessing that these islands are pretty much on the shipping lane, so that's why they would have a lighthouse there. Because,
Yeah.
if it's a rock in the middle of nowhere, you're probably not going to bother. But if it's a rock that 100 ships sail past every few months, then you're probably going to put one there.
Yeah, I suppose.
So what happened? The poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned while trying to secure a crane or something like that, was Harvey's conclusion in a telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board after the Hurstbridge returned to port. Harvey had left Moore and 3 sailors behind to tend at the lighthouse and continue the search. They scoured the islands for the 3 missing men but found nothing.
Okay.
Around the island on December the 29th, the board's superintendent, Robert Muirhead, began an investigation into the keeper's disappearance. Muirhead knew all 3 of the missing men well. Examining the oilskin that had been left behind, he concluded that it belonged to William MacArthur. After going over to the wreckage on the western landing, Muirhead speculated that Marshall and Ducat must have headed out in the storm to try and secure the equipment stored there. When they did not return, Muirhead surmised that MacArthur must have ventured out to try and find them. From the evidence which I was able to procure, Muirhead concluded in his official report, I was satisfied that the men had been on duty up till dinner time on Saturday the 15th of December, that they had gone down to secure a box in which the mooring ropes, landing ropes, etc. were kept, and which was secured in a crevice in the rock about 110 feet above the sea level, and that an extra large sea had rushed up the face of the rock and had gone above them, and coming down with immense force had swept them completely away. But as far as the public was concerned, Muirhead's report wasn't the end of the story. So before I go on to that, he said that there was a big storm hitting that side of the island that smashed the box with all the landing ropes in, which are obviously important because that's how you get the ships in.
Yeah, so 2 of them have decided to go down, try and secure it, try and basically do the jobs and try and make sure that you can actually use the lighthouse and ships can come up to it. And then a swell has come up, smashed above them, and then swept them away when it's come back down.
Right. So, what are you thinking there? Because there's a couple of things I'm thinking.
I'm thinking that could entirely be possible, but surely if you work at that lighthouse and you've seen, depending on how many years they've been working there, but if they used to work in that lighthouse, which I'm assuming they are,
yeah,
surely you would know, one, it's not really a good idea to go down there if you can get that sizable of a swell, even if you are trying to secure it. And surely they would understand, right, okay, maybe let's secure ourselves to something by. I know health and safety wasn't a massive thing back then, but you would still usually tie yourself to something if you were dealing with massive waves coming at your face. You would still try and do something to make sure that you're not going to end up in that water, because you, being the lighthouse people there, you would know once you're in the water, you're basically fucked once you get into those waves because they'll just carry you off, or you'll smash against the rocks below you.
Yeah.
So I feel like the report makes sense, but it's not giving credit to the people who have worked there for quite a while and know what the place is like and would obviously not be as reckless as to just go, fuck it, let's fix this. Oh, there's waves crashing there. That's okay. We'll be quick.
And to me, the supplies are landing ropes, so they are at some point somebody's landed a ship there to get them landing ropes there. So it is possible, maybe a lot harder, but it is possible to land a ship there and secure it to then get landing ropes there. Obviously, no one would have in the first place. So, to me, if your supply box is smashed up, yeah, your instinct may be to go and try and secure it. But in a situation like that, and you're like you said, you know the area. Even if you don't, it's a big storm. You're pretty much on the edge of the sea. To me, it would be leave it. If we lose them, then all we need to do is get in touch with the mainland and say, next ship that comes over, you need to bring land roped in the storm.
Yeah.
Rather than risking your life to save them.
You just radio it in.
It also would makes me feel. I would understand. So the chair was toppled over, a meal was prepared but not eaten. So the guy that stayed behind, he starts eating or whatever, and then he hears something, he panics, or the people that he has his mates shouting for help. He jumps up, the chair tips over, he runs out, he doesn't get water skin. We'll excuse the fact that he might have pulled the door behind him, so that's why the door might be shut, because you would expect the door kind of be open if that was the case, if it was a real emergency. Doesn't really explain why the clock stopped, but the clocks could have been just due to stop anyway, or it might not have been working, and they just don't care.
They've probably got watchers. They probably don't care. The clock's probably just something that's there.
But there's a couple of things it doesn't explain to me, right? One is, even if it was the case that there was a storm and that they were going over to get the thing, why was he the only one eating? The only way I can think of that is if they've ate and he's been on duty, he's just been relieved of duty and sat down to relax and eat his meal after them, and they've already cleaned up and getting sorted. One of them is due to go
just woken up.
Or he's just woken up and he's getting something to eat, ready to go on duty. Yeah, which kind of makes sense, but you'd still pretty much expect them to eat together. Although that might not be the case.
It just sort of depends, because if they are doing those levels of shifts, you could expect possibly two of them to be asleep while one of them's at work, or one of them to be asleep while two of them are at work. So depending on the crossover period, I would probably expect them to have meals individually. Maybe every once in a while have a meal together, just so they can socialize because they're there together. But I would assume with the shifts being the way they are, they're only ever going to be intersecting with two people.
Right,
so
that's
there's always
fair
going
enough.
to be one person away.
Then my bigger question is, and I think the thing that really makes this not make sense on a basic level is, I'm sitting in a lighthouse, I'm sitting in any building, and I'm sitting here.
Yep.
You're on a remote island. There is a huge storm going on, enough to smash up your box of mooring ropes and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Two of your mates have went out to secure it. They're at the other side of the island. Even if the island's not very big, assume it's about the size of your garden. Right?
Yeah.
So you're sitting in your living room, right? And at the bottom of your garden, at the hedge, which is probably nowhere near the distance that they were, right? At the bottom of the garden to your hedge, right? Me and Jordan's trying to sort something out. There is a storm that is big enough to hit an island and create a 200-foot swell to sweep up and down the rocks. It's properly crashing, right? That's how strong the winds are, right? And move stuff that have no business being moved, like a 1-ton rock. How do you really think you'd be able to hear me shout from the bottom of the garden?
You wouldn't be able to hear them shout for the for the water swell, but also surely if you're at that lighthouse, if you know that two people have went out to go and fix something, you would radio it in as a precaution. You would try and contact mainland or something as a precaution.
You would think, but we'll ignore that. What I'm saying is,
ignore that.
For him, he's sitting ready to eat, right? There's a meal ready for him to eat. His chair's tipped over. That's the only sign of anything amiss, really, like weird. And he hasn't put on his protective gear for that weather, right? Now, the only reason that you wouldn't protect you, it's kind of the only reason that you wouldn't finish your meal, although you might want to go and check on them. It's the only reason that you'd tip your chair back and not pick it up, right? And not put on your protective clothing that's potentially going to save your life in these conditions to go up to them, would be if there was an instant moment of panic and shit, I need to be in action now. The only way that would happen is see or hear that something is going wrong and that you need to be there to help. How would you see or hear that in a storm in the North Sea, Kyle? The North Sea is feral.
Yeah, I know. You wouldn't be able to hear it for the water. You wouldn't be able to hear it for the storm, because I'm guessing the wind would be blowing mad. It would probably be to be fair, the wind could have closed the door. Actually, if he ran out, if it's one of the outward opening doors, the wind could have slammed it closed.
I assumed it was in, but I don't know. That's not mentioned.
Even if it's in, it could be a wind swell that pulls it closed because my door
Yeah,
pulls itself closed all the time.
yeah,
But yeah, even in all that case, I can't see him hearing it, especially if he's indoors. If he's indoors, he's got the door closed because he doesn't want to get cold because it's a storm
exactly.
and he doesn't want to get wet and everything like that. You're in a lighthouse, which is quite thickly insulated because it's on a fucking massive island tower thing.
Yeah,
It's
and
gonna be
they generally don't have windows and glass unnecessarily on the low levels because it's something that can
yeah,
blow through in a big storm.
yeah. So I'd get the feeling there's no way in hell you'd be hearing anybody even screaming at the top of the lungs,
Yeah,
like full banshee scream. You're not gonna be hearing it.
yeah. And if I'd sat down and I was ready to eat, and even if I got like a bad feeling or inclination, and thought, you know what it is, I really need to go and check on them, I'd jump up. I might tip my chair over. I'd put on my what they say oilskin, but basically your waterproofs and your
Yeah.
protective gear and your insulation, and then I'd pick my chair up, hide my boots on, and then I'd go. You still wouldn't just jump up, leave.
Yeah, and what time period was this?
Okay, Susie's just getting a 1900s.
1900. So they wouldn't have had walkie-talkies, would they either? So it's not like he could have gotten a
No,
radio call for help either. So no.
no. So it would
They
have been.
tr-
I'm guessing it would have been Morse code or telegram, but like obviously getting something to the mainland and telegramming it. Susie's
yeah,
just made a good point of a giant rock could have hit the rail and got his attention. That's a good point.
it could have, but
Again, would he hear
yeah,
it?
if, I think he might hear that because it is metal crashing. It would be right outside him. Like the railing was part of the lighthouse, wasn't it? Or
Yeah.
like very close to it. But at the same time, it's the question of why was only that one rock moved? Like, I don't know whether it's just they've only taken notice of that one rock, but if a
But
swell's going to bring up a rock of that size, it's going to bring up smaller rocks as well.
but then the other thing as well is that rock hits the railing quite near the lighthouse. It's next to that landing point. That's one of the first things they discovered. Where they are is securing ropes at the other landing point at the opposite side of the island. Even if the thing clangs against the thing, you jump up, you run up the door, you want to see what the hell's going on, you look out, you realise it's this huge rock. What the hell is that? The railing's bent to hell. Right, I really need to go and check on them. Surely at that point you're just going to run out. You're still going to shut the door, get your freaking waterproofs on, and then run back out. So even then, fair enough the tip chair, fair enough the panic, fair enough the right, I need to go and see them, whatever. Even then, I feel like you're still going to protect yourself.
Yeah, I get that. I would assume, and I would assume the oil skins, as they call them, would be right next to the door, so nothing would stop you
Yeah,
from just quickly grabbing it while you're on your way out the door.
yeah. Don't know. Right,
Because
anyway.
I'm sorry to say, even if there was an emergency on my house, outside of my house, if my jacket was hanging up on the railing on the banister, which is right next to the door, I'll be grabbing that while I'm going out the door. So I would still be grabbing it. It would still be coming with me.
Are you ready? For some theories.
Some theories. I like the theories because it's usually batshit crazy.
Because far as the public were concerned, Muirhead's report wasn't the end of the story. Speculation was soon rife. Theories more suited to the Middle Ages were soon doing the rounds. Right, so we're going to go through each of the theories. There's not a great deal. There's just a sentence saying what the theories are. So,
Okay.
theory number one, the men were gobbled
Yeah.
up by a giant sea serpent or whisked away by a huge bird.
So typical mythology. Yeah. Okay.
What do you think of that?
What do you think? I think of that. It's on par with mermen.
Mermaids are real. Have I not showed you the
It
documentary?
it's on par with bloody what is it? Just someone from Atlantis coming and taking one of them away.
Maybe Atlantis is where the mermaids live, so you can't say that. Anyway, what about theory number two? The men left the island by boat because they wanted to escape death.
That lighthouse, as far as I remember, working at a lighthouse, it was a pretty well-paid job because you were so isolated. It was like danger pay and stuff. It's like working on an oil rig. It was because you're so isolated and stuff. You got a pretty penny for working at it, and it was
I
basically
don't
an
they could still
extremely
have debt. They
boring
could
job.
still amount a lot of debt on mainland. Maybe we'll assume they were in debt. We'll assume they were all in debt. Even
Yeah,
then,
but,
I
I
don't
mean,
feel like that's a
if
thing.
Well, there's the thing. Like, I could understand if one of them is in debt, or even two of them is in like big debt, but all three of them all three of them deciding, right, lads, let's just fuck off.
No, but even assuming that all three of them are in huge debt, right, we need to fuck off. There's not a boat there. They're dropped off by boat and then the boat leaves. So how does that work? Unless they built a boat,
Yeah,
in which
how do
case
they?
someone noticed a
How?
janky ass fucking homemade boat floating up somewhere with three people.
Yeah, this isn't a escape from
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz. Exactly. This isn't just a freaking raft made of quilts and shit.
Okay,
But
what about theory number 3? Right, they were
right,
spirited away by the skeletal crew of a ghost ship.
this isn't Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay, then what about the final one, that they were kidnapped by foreign spies?
Why would foreign spies want to kidnap lighthouse keepers in Scotland on the remote island in a shipping lane? Well, I'm assuming this is when we weren't at war at this point. In which, why would
Not in
foreign spies
1900s.
want? Then why would foreign spies want them? They've got no useful intel. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a shipping lane. It's a well-known shipping lane. What can you tell me about it? We turn the light on and off, or we make
Right,
sure the light's always on.
so there's some more stuff for you. More doubt was cast on the official investigation, with the emergence of a logbook supposedly containing several baffling entries between the 12th and 15th of December.
Is this going to be that they descended into madness in the isolation?
I don't know. Well, they're not completely isolated. If there was one guy, I would assume that, but there's three, so surely they can keep themselves kind of sane, even if they do go a bit nuts. But anyway, and they're relieved every so often. I feel like the factor for that with a remote job like that.
I
Maybe
feel like the
maybe it's
factor
not so
for that.
much then, but they would. So in the first entry, Marshall is supposed to have written that a great storm, the likes of which he had never seen before, had hit the island. He continued that Ducat quiet when the storm hit, and MacArthur, who was a big burly man, not known to have much of a sensitive side, was weeping. So that may explain MacArthur running out without his weather protection, because he's basically just like, I'll do what I want. He's a northerner.
Yeah, but like, to be fair, a big burly man weeping his out. If he could have received a letter from his family saying like, "Oh, such and such has passed away" or whatever. Like that could have nothing to do with the storm whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the I don't know. I mean, the storm, the likes of which you've never seen, it sort of depends because he might have never seen a storm there, but the others might have, which was why one of them was quite calm and the other one was panicking a bit. Fuck knows. It doesn't really
So
do much though.
yeah. So a second entry has all three men praying in the eye of a monstrous storm. And the third and final entry, which was written on the 15th, states that the storm had passed and all was now calm. On hearing about the existence of these logbook entries, many questioned the idea that the man had been swept out to sea at all, because if anyone, even one of them, surely had died, then whoever wrote this log on the 15th would have surely mentioned it. There had to be another explanation.
Yeah.
There was another explanation. The logbook entries were interjected into the story several years after Marshall Ducat and MacArthur disappeared, so there is no evidence that they ever existed. And as the 14 Times journalist Mike Dash discovered after carrying out his own investigation. So, dismissing both the logbook as a fake and fanciful tales of sea serpents and ghost ships, what are we left with? Three theories have emerged over the years that seek to explain the disappearance. So, theory number one, official theory number one. The
I'm
first
waiting
is
to see if
based.
any of them match mine.
I got what brief overview of yours?
My brief overview of mine is you're isolated, you're alone. I'm assuming they would want to relax and stuff. I'm thinking possibly just like an argument, a drunken brawl, and it's happened at like the worst time during a storm. So it's ended up being a let's take this outside, getting angry and stuff with each other.
Okay,
Two,
so
two of them have went outside to deal with it. A third one sort of come along saying like, "Look, lads, stop this," and they've ended up getting like pulled down or something due to a wave or something's happened.
excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm allergic to you being almost correct because that's pretty much the first theory. The first is based on the character of William MacArthur. So this is the big dude. MacArthur
Yeah,
was, by all accounts, an ill-tempered man who was quick to settle an argument with his fists. Basically, he liked punching the shit out of people. Like I said, he's a northerner.
yeah,
It has been
exactly.
speculated that he could have started a fight on the western landing, which led to all three men falling to their deaths from the cliffs. I don't know why. Like they could have just fell. I don't know why he went. He went out without his coat for a fight, and then all of a sudden that means the three of them fell off the cliff. Like they could have just fallen without a fight, but never mind.
Well, I feel like it could have been whoever was having the meal wasn't the one that was in the fight. It's like it was a fight between two people.
And
They
it
ended
seems
up
more likely
going
that he
going
was having a
out,
meal.
and he was having a meal, and he ended up like having to stop his meal, jump out of his chair, and go, look, like, seriously, stop this. There's a storm going on, and then in trying to break it up, they've all ended up having something happen.
Which would make sense, but again, I don't think he'd hear anything going on from where he was. So, you know, um,
I mean, it, it
there's
it depends on if he saw them go out for the fight. Like if he saw them go out for the fight, he might have sort of waited a couple of minutes and then sort of panicked. If it's taken a few minutes and they haven't come back yet, he might have panicked and thought, "Oh fuck, what's going on? The weather's going up. Are they still out there?"
The second theory is that one of the men, again probably MacArthur, I feel like this is a bit harsh on bad press, but never mind, murdered the other two, ditched the bodies into the sea, and then threw himself off the cliffs. While both theories add a level of bloodthirsty juiciness to the mystery, there's no evidence that either a fight or a murder took place. It is, of course, perfectly possible for men in confined quarters to rub each other up the wrong way and to a point where they would snap and all hell breaks loose, especially when one of them apparently has a history of violence. But without any bodies or actual crime scenes to examine, these are two theories that are mere supposition at this point.
So,
So, like,
yeah, and if he was gonna fight with them, surely he would have already fought with them a few times before, so they would like be used to it and
yeah.
not need to do all that shit. Like I'm sort of disproving my own theory there, but like if he's been with them for a while and he's this big burly man and they've had arguments and things before, surely they would have known a way to calm him down or a way to like deal with it, even if it's hitting him over the head with a pan.
So I have theory number three, which is meant to be it's much more plausible than the other two. It is what I think is seems like the most possible, although obviously not proven, and does explain why. Like I said, let the ropes fucking go. It's a storm. You can get some more there. Why do that? So it explains that as well.
Okay, damaged radio.
No. So the much more plausible explanation is that Marshall and Ducat were swept away while trying to secure the supplies and equipment on the West Landing, which is what we initially thought. When his
Right.
colleagues failed to return, MacArthur headed out to find them, and he too perished in the storm. Uh, which is, it's pretty much what was said, although it doesn't really explain why he didn't put his coat on. But now that we know he's a big angry bastard, he might have just thought, I'm just going to see where they are. I'll wander down there. Don't need me coat. I'll go, what the hell are you doing? Hurry up, and then I'll come back. Um,
Yeah, it's the angry. What the fuck you doing? I'm trying to get to bed here, and I have to wait for you twats to come back. Get your asses up here, type thing. Like
yeah.
storming through to try and find them.
So it says, why would anyone head out on such a dangerous expedition when they could have stayed safe in the lighthouse can be explained by the fact that Marshall had previously been fined 5 shillings for losing his equipment in a previous gale. As a family man, losing 5 shillings in 1900 was no laughing matter, so it is no surprise that securing equipment was more important to Marshall than his own personal safety. Of course, the real reason for the disappearance of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur will probably never be known. However, these three men met their fate on a cold night on cold December night back in 1900, be it by accident, misadventure, or design. The Flannan Isles mystery remains one of the most baffling episodes in Scottish maritime history.
I see. That's quite interesting. So the fact that one of them got fined for losing equipment would give them the incentive to actually go out there and go, look, seriously, I can't afford to lose this money. We need to go and like secure this box and secure these lines. And he's ended up having the others come and help him because it's more than a one man job. And if they're in such close quarters with each other, I get the feeling there would be a sense of camaraderie So if one of them is in trouble, the others would help. So if one of them said, "Look, lads, I need a hand. I'm going to get fined and I can't afford it," the others would probably help them out.
Yeah. So, 10 shillings is half a pound, so 5 shillings is quarter of a pound, so 25 pence.
How did they know that the? I know this might be a obvious question to some, but how did they know that the box was broken? If they can't, if they wouldn't be able to hear it or anything like that, how would they know that it was broken and it needed repaired?
And maybe they're just checking it.
Possibly. Just checking up the insurance, making sure everything's okay.
Yeah. So. Where are we going?
So Susie's unfortunately chatting with herself because nobody else is chatting, but she's brought up the theory of drunk celebrating after the storm, hence the possible log, and then they go out to fight, don't realise their usual spot to duke it out and deal with these things has been compromised by the weather, and they end up falling in a landslide.
Yeah,
So
that's a
if
good point.
So because a lot of people, if you're in that confined space, you want to we wouldn't want to fight indoors and break your stuff. So they might have had like a designated spot on the cliffside where they duke it out. If that's been compromised and they haven't realised, they could end up just falling because of it.
So I will just say, and I'm not glossing over this, I will talk about this. 5 shillings in today's money is about 46 quid. So while it may not be a massive amount, if it's 46 quid, that's what, like 4 or 5 hours work. So it's
And
understandable.
it also depends how much they're getting paid, and like you said,
And how
if
much
one of them,
equipment's being lost. If 2 ropes are lost,
yeah,
that's a day's wage you've lost in
yeah,
fines. Easy. Probably more, to be
which
honest.
a lot of families back then wouldn't be able to afford. That would be
Yeah.
crippling. So
But yeah, that's a good point. The drunken celebrating after the storm. Yeah, but there's nothing. There's nothing.
the storm's past. Let's celebrate that. Like
Yeah, but then you'd
everything.
expect beer bottle shit to be lying. You wouldn't expect pissed people with a couple of beer bottles lying around to be like, right, I tell you what, we're going to go out and have a fight. We're going to tidy up all these bottles first, though. So you more mess to be there. And I don't think there's any evidence of them having any alcohol because they are remote. They're only given what they got and what they're sent. And it is, you're there for a set amount of time and you're on a rotation to be on duty. So there's not a day where you're not at work the next day while you're there.
I know, but you would assume they would still allow them alcohol for like morale reasons, same as how
No?
like if you were in the navy, you were allowed like a rum ration type thing, all that
That
sort
was
of
a bit
stuff.
different. But no, I
But
wouldn't. I wouldn't expect it. When you think about it,
honestly, but what if one of them snuck in like people carried hip flasks and stuff? What if one of them took in
yeah,
booze, got a little bit rowdy? Like he was using his own supply and ended up getting a bit rowdy with it.
I don't know. I just feel like they'd be checked for that stuff, and I don't feel like. I feel like even if they got a hip flask or two in, like it's even if they got a hip flask each, I just feel like there'd be evidence to that. There'd be something. There'd be more mess thing. If you're pissed, you know, take it after yourself. You wouldn't make a perfectly good meal if you're pissed and then
You,
decide, you know what, I'm gonna go for a fight.
you wouldn't, but if only one of them's pissed and he's come down and started a fight with the others and they've ended up going outside with it, and if you're pissed, you'll still keep the flask on you because you'll have it in your hand. Because from experience of being the only sober person in the room, a drunk person can fall down a set of stairs and still have a bottle in his hand without spilling a single fucking drop and decide, okay, I'm just going to continue drinking while walking out the door.
Yes,
So
from
if
experience, yes.
yes,
Not a full
exactly.
set of stairs, but I've fallen over before and not spilt my drink.
Exactly. So if it's one person having like a hip flask drinking too much of it, he keeps a hold of it while he's ending up like getting into an argument and dragging the others outside because of it.
Now, I feel like, as well as other suggestions that have just been suggested, I feel like there was no substances involved. I could be wrong. I don't know. I feel like it's more likely that the two of them, they were fucked up in the storm trying to secure things. I don't know why he didn't put his coat on, but I feel like he's a big dude, and I feel like in his head he was just like, before I'm gonna eat, like he's cooked his thing. They're away out. Right, I'm gonna sit and eat. He looks up at the clock. What time is it? Oh God, they've been out ages. And in his head, he's just gonna go out, wander across, go, what the hell are you doing? Hurry up, see what they're doing, see where they're up to, check that they're still there, come back, and then then he'd meal. And I feel like that's why he didn't bother putting his protective clothing
I,
on. I feel like he's went out, they've not been there. Maybe he's been looking for them and went to the edge, and he's been knocked off as well.
I
Was
have
gonna
an
say
easy
blown off, but
explanation for the. I have an easy explanation for the quote.
go on then.
They're in the north where people go out in miniskirts and crop tops to go out drinking. People don't give a fuck about the cold. He's probably just went,
That's what
"Oh,
I'm
I'll be
saying.
back in
Yeah.
a minute."
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Because we are northern. I am much more immune to the weather than you are.
You are.
I
You've got more
would,
insulation.
yeah. Thanks for calling us that. If I was going out to secure something in a storm, I would put on the proper equipment. No matter how bad the storm is or what the hell is going on, if I need to grab something from the car, or if I needed to run out and go hurry up what the hell he's doing, or I needed to get something from the shed, and if I needed to pop outside and I knew it wasn't far and I was coming straight back, I wouldn't bother
Yeah,
putting a coat on. I
like a
wouldn't even bother putting
2 minute
a
thing.
jacket on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been literally absolutely chucking it down, bouncing off the floor, and I've needed to get something out the car before, and I've just ran the car in a t-shirt. Because it doesn't matter, you're back in a sec.
And if you're someone like me, you're even more of a dumbass because you don't walk through your house with your shoes on. Your shoes are stayed off. So if you just run into the car to grab something, you don't put your shoes on either. But I'm assuming
I'm
if
not
he's
that
on a
dumb.
cliffside, he's going to put a shoe on.
Yeah, I'm not that dumb. Anyway, that's a mystery solved. We should have a little stamp that comes on screen that goes solved.
Boom!
Officially.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? Rainforest?
Yeah, let's go rainforest. Why not? It's always fun. Everything can kill you, and nothing wants you to be there. So yeah, let's go there.
Caso das Mascaras da Chumbo.
Sounds very Spanish.
De Chumbo. It's actually Portuguese.
Close.
Lead masks case. So, on the afternoon of August the 20th, 1966, a young boy was flying a kite on the Morro de Vintem, or the Vintem Hill, right, in Niterói, Rio de Janeiro, when he came up upon the bodies of two deceased males and reported them to the authorities. I apologise if I'm butchering any Portuguese or Brazilian names here. Brazilian is Portuguese.
To be fair, you're sounding quite good so far.
Yeah, that's just because you don't speak Portuguese. The Morro do Vintem had difficult terrain, and the police were unable to reach the bodies until the next day. When a small team of police and firefighters arrived, they encountered an odd scene. The bodies rested next to each other.
Hold on. A boy flying his kite has gotten there, found the bodies, fucked off to the police, and the police went, "Nah, it's too difficult to climb." How the fuck did the boy get there in the first place? And if the police are scared to get up there, how hard of a fucking climb is this?
Right. First of all, it's difficult terrain. I mean, they could maybe he's seen them from way up on a cliffside or something and been like, "Yeah, there's fucking bodies down there." The police have come and went, "Yeah, there is, but it's getting late, so we can't fucking go down there in the dark. We'll do it tomorrow morning."
Yeah, I suppose.
So anyway, it was 1966. So yeah, I don't think they got the floodlights out and got the air ambulance in.
No.
When a small team of police and firefighters arrived, they encountered an odd scene. The bodies rested next to each other, partly covered by grass. Each body wore a formal suit and a lead eye mask and a waterproof coat. There were no signs of any major trauma, and there was no evidence of a struggle. Next to the corpses, the police found an empty water bottle, a packet containing 2 wet towels. I'm assuming it means... I call them towelettes, don't they? What do you call them? Baby wipes.
Yeah.
Baby wipes, Americans called moist towelettes.
Yeah.
Did you know
No,
that?
I think it means like actual towels.
Yeah, I feel like it means actual wet towels. A small notebook was also identified on which there were written cryptic the instructions: 1630 S star no local determina determinado. 1830, Ingre capsulas, apos effito, protege metias, aguardar sinal mascara.
English, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It basically said 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals, await signal mask.
I get the feeling these people have been either tripping balls or trying to take tablets to prevent some sort of poisoning or sickness, possibly. Like, and making sure that they're taking it at a specific time so they've got enough time to do something. Like, meet up somewhere, right? Okay, take this anti whatever pill and then go and do a job. But my first thought on hearing that they had lead masks was lead poisoning. But I know that usually takes a long time.
Yeah. So the two men were identified later as Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana.
Okay.
I feel
That
like
means
I feel
nothing
like
to me.
I feel like I nailed that.
I
Two electronic
feel like you named that.
They
So
were
they
two
were local.
electronic technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, a town several kilometers to the northeast of Rio de Janeiro. Following an investigation, the police reconstructed a plausible narrative of the men's last days. On August the 17th, Cruz and Viana left Campos de Goyatazes, or however it's pronounced, with the stated intent that they needed to purchase some materials for work. The two men then boarded the bus to Niterói and arrived at 2:30 p.m. Evidence shows that the waterproof coats were purchased at a shop there, and one bottle of water from a local bar. Upon being interviewed, the waitress from the bar described Miguel as very nervous and noticed he frequently checked his watch. That is the last time they were known to have been seen alive, and it is presumed that they went directly from the bar to the spot at which they were discovered. Go
Okay.
on.
Nervous, randomly coming away from work and having precise instructions. I know there's drug cartels and stuff quite rampant, like gangs and things quite rampant in Rio de Janeiro and places like that. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking it's possibly they've been told you have to go and do this for us. He has your specific instructions. You have to do this at this time, that sort of thing. And that's he's ended up being extremely nervous while getting the drink and like making sure he's on time by constantly checking his watch because it's something that he's getting like either forced to do or it's just something he has to do.
But they
And
are two electronic technicians in 1966, which I feel like would be a half decently paid job even in a poorer country.
I feel like it's a half decently paid job, but it doesn't take much to like get on the wrong foot of someone, and if that someone is the wrong type of someone, even or if they're related to them or have a debt, like they're the ones that got them the job, or something like. There's multiple explanations. It could just be that they've decided to do this on their own. They've discovered something and they want to try and do something. They've found some way of making more money, or because human greed is insatiable, so they could have just found some way of making more money, but it's quite dangerous and involves them having to sneakily do something.
No obvious injuries were discovered at the scene, nor later at the autopsy. A search for toxic substances did not occur. The coroner's office was very busy at the time, and when the autopsy was finally conducted, the internal organs of the two victims were badly decomposed and were not reliable for testing. So there are
Yep,
theories.
sounds right.
Multiple theories.
I like multiple theories. There's always multiple theories.
Foul play.
Okay.
So, like you said, there's something amiss. They've been given this. Somehow they've been poisoned. Maybe the capsules were poisoned, or somebody knew they were going to do this, or the capsules were switched, or there was something not right. There's something going on.
Yeah.
Or UFOs.
No.
One theory revolves around the testimony of a friend of the two men who claimed they were members of a group of scientific spiritualists. The men were apparently attempting to contact extraterrestrials or spirits using psychedelic drugs. Believing that such an encounter would be accompanied by a blinding light, the men cut metal masks to shield their eyes and may have died of drug overdoses. This account is corroborated by the esoteric diary entry found at the scene and by mask-making materials and literature concerning spirits found at the men's home.
So not really UFOs, more just them getting pissed off their mind, thinking
But
they're
I
going to
bet you
discover.
didn't think that UFOs was the most plausible theory.
It is, but it's because it's got nothing to do with UFOs. It's
Uh,
getting high, expecting to see something, and making lead. I want to know, like you think you're going to see a blinding light, so you decide to make eye masks out of metal.
yeah.
I mean,
I've got a list of God almighty. Well, okay, so I've got a list of unsolved deaths.
unsolved deaths. I'm guessing you've found a lot if you're going God Almighty. There's probably a lot of unsolved deaths because I'm
Well,
pretty sure there's like at least a couple each year.
there's an unsolved murder, so there is. Oh, we need to do this at some other point because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 entries in the category prehistoric. Then there is
Okay.
ancient. Then there is
Yeah.
medieval.
Yes.
Then there's early modern. And then there is the 19th century. And then there is a
Okay.
huge fucking page. A
I'm not
huge page that's
surprised.
still going. And then there's 1950 to 1974, so they give up on the 19th century and start categorizing it. And then there's
Yeah,
a
I'm not
huge
surprised.
list. And it's still going. It's still going. And then there's 2000, 2010. And then there's a huge list. And then there's 2010, 2019. And there's a big list there. And then right at the bottom, there's 2020s. And there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 already.
So there's 7 already in 2 years.
Do you want to know what the last... So there's also Death Disputed. Do you want to know what the last was? So the last death? Unsolved death?
Yeah, why not?
James Dean, 35, was an English footballer and champion kickboxer who disappeared in the area of Oswaldwhistle on the 5th of May 2021. He was 35 years old. His body was found 4 days later. While authorities have said that the case is not treated as a homicide, no cause of death has yet been determined. The police announced his death was not being treated as suspicious.
So was a body found? Sorry, the body was found, wasn't it?
Body was
Or
found,
body...
yeah. There was no term.
I'm assuming they would have gotten a coroner to take a look at him and something. It might just be the case that they're not reporting it because they don't want to. Like, they've told the family the reason, but they don't want to make the reason public or something.
He was 6
It
foot
could have
3,
been
so
COVID.
he was 6'3", man. So he's a big dude. So I don't feel like if it was a murder, it would have to be like shot or something. That's a list for another day.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
dude!
feel like it could be COVID or something, honestly. Yes.
I apologise if I've got this wrong, but there is John Snorri Sigurðsson.
John Snorri Sigurðsson. Sigurðsson?
Sigurðsson.
Sigurðsson.
He was with
Okay.
Juan Pablo Mor Prieto and Ali Sadpara, 3 high-altitude mountaineers that went missing while climbing the bottleneck area of Pakistan's K2 mountain on the 5th of February 2021. Their bodies were found on the 26th of July that year, but the cause of death could not be determined.
Fair do.
There's also another English hiker, an Argentine man, and a blind female Paraguayan actress. That's the people who haven't been. So, and an Australian financial advisor. They're 2020s.
I find it quite interesting the fact that we still have like unsolvable like mystery deaths with today's technology. Like we can trace the bones of a medieval person to figure out what they look like, what diseases they had, and all this sort of stuff. But we can't do it to people that died last week.
Well, what we can continue our unsolved mysteries thing, because I have a list of unsolved murders from 2000 to present, right? And I could get more. But what we can do is we can pick a category, so say 2010s, and I will say pick a number.
6.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Amber Tucaro, who was a 20-year-old Canadian First Nations woman who was last seen alive on the 18th of August 2010 while hitchhiking in Edmonton with an unknown man. Her body was found in 2012 in nearby Leduc County. So we will then research that on the podcast and solve it as we go.
Fair do. We will solve mysteries.
We will solve the mysteries when we are left unattended.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and
this we might not make this too, like, not every week, but basically when we are
Well-
left unattended with
Yeah, so when it's just us two, it gives you a little theme for it to go. I mean, we'll still drop in things that we'll want to talk about and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
random stuff like
We shall be
with
the
life
world's best two detectives. We're like Sherlock and Holmes. Oh no, they were the same person.
Sherlock and Watson.
Yes,
You're
I couldn't remember his name.
You're tired.
Fucking hell.
Watson and Holmes, my dear
Yeah.
sir.
No, it's Sherlock and Holmes.
Sherlock and Holmes.
I need to find my honourable mention for this week. My guy who was awesome.
I want, right? I want there, and I hope this is out there, a Jekyll and Hyde style story, but it's Sherlock and Holmes.
I
And
feel
it's just
like
like a guy trying to go about his normal everyday business, and then he just has like a personality switch, and he has to solve a mystery, he has to solve a murder or something. Or maybe he solves his own murders.
I feel like that's what I just did. Right, hold on. I have to find... Where was this guy?
There was this guy.
Oh, that's not
No.
good. Carry on.
Oh dear lord, sir. Yeah, you lost it.
I've still got about talk to you about the Servants of Wank.
The Servants of Wank. God's sake.
Yeah.
Well, right, this is a quick one. Did you know that during World War II, the United States published a spy manual urging middle managers in enemy territory, so basically like managers of places, to sabotage their employers by bringing up irrelevant issues, promoting bad workers, haggling over petty details, and holding unnecessary meetings. I feel like that got leaked into society's how to run a business manual, because now every company seems to do that exact thing.
Yeah.
But imagine that being you. They're the war tactics you never hear about. Is we're going to leak this manual to spies in foreign countries and say, look, all you're going to do is sabotage these businesses. How? You're going to make it run shit. You're going to promote all the worst people, and you're just going to keep clogging people up in meetings so they can't actually work.
Oh, God. I could go with Digby, Tath and Walter, but we're going to be on for another 15 minutes because it's fucking awesome. There was a guy I was sure shout out, but I feel like I'm going to have to go with Digby, Tath and Walter because I can't find the guy I was looking for. Should we go for Digby, Tath? No! Alright.
You found a replacement guy, or you found the guy before?
No, so I think this is the guy I was going to shout out, but...
I have a guy to shout out.
No, I'm going to shout out Digby, Tath and Walter.
Okay.
I've got it. I'm sorry, I know it's longer. Go on, you can do one as well. We can have 2 honoraries.
2 honoraries. Right. People may need to correct me on this honorary shout out because I don't know how, like, if this is him compensating for something. But you know how we have millionaires and billionaires going to space and wasting away money and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
There's a shout out to Swedish millionaire Johan Elish for purchasing 400,000 acres of the Amazonian rainforest from a logging company for $14 million for the sole purpose of preservation. So he bought 400,000 acres of the rainforest just so that they would stop touching it for logging.
I mean, that's heroic. That's heroic. Not as
So
heroic
well
as
done for
Digby Tatham Water.
Digby Tatham Water. I mean,
So
the name Digby is sorely missed in today's
it's
society.
awesome, dude. His name is Major Alison Digby Tatham Water of a Distinguished Service Order because he was given a DSO.
The name Alison for men is very missed as well.
Yeah, so it's Alison
It's
Digby,
very
and then
weird.
it's double barrel surname Tatham, and then dash water as in Water, Ter. So Digby Tatham
Also,
Water.
it's water. Yeah.
Yes, Tatham Water. Um, Now remember when our good friend of the podcast, Mad Jack, was well known for
Yes.
going into a battle, saying that no one's properly dressed for battle if they haven't got their broadsword, and he used to charge ahead playing bagpipes.
And he's got the last recorded kill in a modern war with a fucking longbow.
Yes, and we are like, this guy is nuts. We absolutely love him. He is an absolute fucking hero, and also we can kind of see with the odd person like this how some people do kind of fear just British in general be fucking crazy sometimes. I
Yeah.
may have topped it. I bet you never thought I would, but I may have topped it.
How have you top? Did this guy go in like just shirtless with a hammer in hand?
It gets better. It's
Okay.
better than that. It's better than that. You're thinking too big and bold with hammer.
Okay.
On the 21st of May 1917, Digby Tatham Water was born, and he died on the 21st of March 1993. Right? He was known as Digby Tatham Water, or by his friends, just Digby. He was a
Okay.
British Army officer who fought in the Second World War and was famed for wearing a bowler hat and carrying an umbrella into battle. He didn't even take a weapon.
Yes. Just full British. Yes.
There is a war, sir. There are bullets. Yes, I know, but I don't want to get wet if it starts raining. Where's my umbrella?
I am a British gentleman. I shall wear my bowler.
He was given the Distinguished Service Order. He was in the Battle of Arnhem, and his unit was the Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry and Parachute Regiment, which is even better because it almost makes you feel like if he was parachuting in and it failed, he'd just pop his umbrella up, floating like Mary Poppins.
I'm just imagining him parachuting in, but keeping a hold of his fucking hat all the way down.
So he was born. He was born in Shropshire in England. Um, He passed, so early military career, he passed out of Sandhurst on the 21st of January 1937 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant to an unattached list for the Indian Army, with a view of joining the Indian Army due to his family connections. He was later attached to the 2nd Battalion, Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry in India from the 13th of March 1937, and subsequently transferred to that regiment on the 27th of April 1938, never joining the Indian Army. So that he would be able to continue his hobbies of tiger hunting and pig sticking.
What typical British hobbies?
And apparently, just in case anyone doesn't know, pig sticking is a form of boar hunting done by individuals or groups of spearmen on foot or on horseback using specialized boar spear. The spear was sometimes fitted with a crossguard to stop the enraged animal from diving its pierced body further down the shaft in order to attack its killer before dying. What he
It's
liked to
it's
do
basically
was
it's medieval boar hunting.
stab pigs and hunt tigers. When the Second World
Yeah.
War broke out, Digby was not initially sent to fight in Europe. His sister Kit served in the Western Desert Campaign and was awarded the French Croix de Gras, where Croix de Gras, I don't know,
Good
where
one.
serving with the Hadfield Spears Unit upon hearing of his brother John's death in the 2nd Battalion of El Alamein in 1942, the 2nd Dragoon Guards, the Queen's Bays, Digby volunteered for the airborne forces and transferred to the Parachute Regiment. He was appointed as company commander of A Company of the 2nd Parachute Battalion, part of 1st Parachute Brigade and the 1st Airborne, which he was stationed in Grantham, Lincolnshire during his training. His tiger hunting exploits were well known and his reputation was enhanced as he was able to obtain the use of an American Dakota aeroplane in which he flew all the company officers to the camp in London to London for a party at the Ritz. So he stole an American plane, flew his entire company to the Ritz London for a party.
Why the fuck not?
A Company was then chosen by the battalion's commandant officer Lieutenant Colonel John Dutton Frost to lead the 2nd Parachute Battalion to the Battle of Arnhem. Part of the Operation Market Garden, because of Digby's reputation of being an aggressive commander. In preparation, Digby concerned about the unreliability of radios, educated his men on how to use bugle calls that had been used during the Napoleonic Wars for communication in case the radios failed. So he didn't trust the radios. I don't like these new radios. They're not going to work. They're going to break. So I'm going to teach you how to use bugle calls.
Yeah, why the fuck not?
Because
if you are in Nazi and you hear a fucking bugle call, you are gonna be confused as fuck and expect a fucking Napoleonic charge coming your way.
Yeah, but also, Kyle, if I am trying to communicate with you and I use a bugle call and you can hear it, also anybody in between us, i.e., any enemies, could also hear it. It's not exactly ideal.
A lot of bugle calls didn't require a reply or anything, so you'd only hear the location of one person. I'm assuming you would move away from that location as soon as you've done the call.
Are you ready? Why do you think he carried the umbrella?
Fuck knows. Did he carry the umbrella because he heard it rains in France?
He also took an umbrella with his kit for identification because he had trouble remembering passwords and he always found it a pain in the backside and felt that anyone who saw him would immediately think that only a bloody fool of an Englishman would carry an umbrella into battle.
Very true, yeah.
So he knew that everyone else in the world, if they saw what looked like something insane happening, it was probably a British person.
Yeah. Good on you, sir. Good on you.
A Company were dropped away from the target of Arnhem Bridge and had to go through Arnhem where the streets were blocked by German forces. Digby led his men through the back gardens of nearby houses instead of attempting to advance through the streets, thus avoided the Germans. So he went, right, they've blocked the streets, we'll just go through the garden over here.
Yeah.
Digby and A Company managed to travel 8 miles in 7 hours, while also taking prisoner 150 German soldiers, including members of the SS.
Imagine getting captured by this guy in a bowler hat and an umbrella by a guy who just wandered into a house and undoubtedly went, "Oh, hello there."
He had a small company of parachuted people that landed in the wrong place and snuck through people's gardens, and still managed to catch 150 German soldiers,
including the SS.
And they still averaged a mile an hour while marching. Including the SS. During the battle, Digby wore his maroon beret instead of a helmet and waved his umbrella while walking about defences despite heavy mortar fire. So he put on his beret and they were like, "Do you not think you should have a helmet?" And he was just pointing at people with the umbrella, going, you do that. There's fucking mortar shells flying around.
Yeah, it's typical British officer.
When the Germans started using tanks to cross the bridge, Digby led a bayonet charge against them wearing a bowler hat. Right, okay.
He led a bayonet charge against tanks in a bowler hat. That's the most British sentence ever.
How do you lead it? Wait, first of all, what a bayonet charge against tanks? I've never heard of the anti-tank bayonet, and I think there's a reason.
I feel like it was a bayonet charge to get the soldiers that were like gearing up the tanks or something. Like the tanks had stopped for maintenance or something. He was leading a bayonet charge against the crews or something.
It said when they started using tanks to cross the bridge, Digby led a bayonet charge against them wearing a bowler hat. I like how he put on his maroon beret
for mortar fire.
And then we're going to charge head on into this tank using a bayonet, right? Are you now going to put your helmet on? No, right? So you're going to leave your maroon beret on? No, I'm going to put on my bowler hat. What? So apparently you need to be more smartly dressed for attacking tanks than you do for taking water.
No, you need to be more smartly dressed when you're charging towards the enemy with a bayonet, no doubtly attached to the end of his umbrella at this fucking point. Or just using the tip of his umbrella. And this guy is carrying multiple hats.
I've just read ahead and get even. Are you ready?
This guy's carrying multiple hats into battle.
We've questioned, right, how he led a bayonet charge against tanks.
Yeah.
I should have read ahead, where it says he later disabled a German armoured car with his umbrella, incapacitating the driver by shoving the umbrella aggressively through the car's observational slit and poking the driver in the eye. So there was an armoured car, presumably with a machine gun on it, and he went to the driver and went, "No, fuck you, fuck off."
How dare you, stab.
Digby then noticed the chaplain pinned down by enemy fire went across the street to get the injured soldiers. Digby got to him and said, "Don't worry about the bullets, I've got an umbrella." He then escorted the chaplain across the street under his umbrella. When he returned to the front line, one of his fellow officers said about his umbrella, "That thing won't do you any good," to which Digby replied, "Oh my goodness, Pat, but what if it rains?" Digby was then injured later by shrapnel, which also cut open the rear of his trousers, but he continued to fight until A Company had run out of ammunition. Despite the radios being as unreliable as Digby has predicted, and the bugle calls being used most in the battle, the message of "out of ammo, God save the king" was radioed before Digby was captured.
So he ended up using his bugle calls as well, man.
Yeah, he just
Oh.
bugle called the whole way.
I love this man so much.
Because of his injury, Digby was sent to St. Elizabeth's Hospital, but escaped out of a window with his second-in-command, Captain Tony, when the German nurses left him alone. After creating an escape compass from buttons on his uniform, Digby and Frank headed towards Mariendal. Upon arriving, they were hidden by a Dutch woman who spoke no English. Before being put in contact with their neighbour, he disguised them as painters and moved them to Dirk Wildeboer's house. Wildeboer was a local leader of the Dutch resistance in Ede. They then met Menno de Nooy of the Dutch resistance, who gave them a bicycle. Wildeboer had a fake Dutch identity card made for Digby to allow him to pose as Peter Jensen, a deaf-mute son of a lawyer. Digby used the bicycle to visit fellow soldiers in hide. He didn't even escape. He just went round other people. Digby used the bicycle to visit fellow soldiers in Haydn, and the Germans did not recognise him, despite him helping to push a Nazi staff car out of a ditch, and German soldiers being belittled in the same house that he was staying in. Digby then gathered 150 escaped soldiers to head towards the front line. This was known as Operation Pegasus. Digby and the soldiers cycled to the Rhine, and Digby flashed the V for Victory sign using Morse code with his torch. Members of the XXX Corps then ferried them across the river. Upon return to the United Kingdom, Digby was awarded the Distinguished Service Order. He also wrote a report on the Battle of Arnhem Bridge that resulted in Lieutenant Jack Rayburns posthumously receiving a promotion to captain after being awarded the Victoria Cross.
He went round Nazi Germany on a bike, pretending to be a deaf-mute person,
He was
collecting 150 British soldiers to
he
do
was
a charge.
shot in the arse, escaped from the hospital, was in hiding with the Dutch resistance, and then when he got a bicycle and a way to get out, instead of getting, he decided to just proceed to cycle around the town, visiting people.
Yeah.
After the war ended, he served in the British-controlled Mandatory Palestine before being appointed the 5th King's African Rifles in British Kenya in 1946, where he also bought 2 estates in Ebru and Nanyuki. Despite the Mau Mau uprising, Digby raised a volunteer mounted police force at his own expense and led them into battle against the Mau Mau. After that, he returned to run his estates. He also created the concept of the modern safari, where animals would be photographed rather than hunted. He supported racial reconciliation and believed that Africans had the right to self-government. This belief made him somewhat of an outlier within Kenyans' European community. Tatham Water was outspokenly sympathetic to African nationalism, and in particular to the Kikuyu concerns about land ownership. During Kenyan independence, it is reported that the British Defence Staff told the British High Commissioner to look after Tatham Water. He married Jane Boyd in 1949, daughter of Captain Roderick Butiel Boyd, who was a farmer in Nanyuki, Kenya, and granddaughter of Arthur George Egerton, the 5th Earl of Wilton. They had 3 daughters and several grandchildren. Their daughter, Belinda Rose Tatham Water, was born 1954, married in Nanyuki, German aristocrat Duke Friedrich von Oldenburg, great-grandson of Friedrich Augustus II, the last ruling Grand Duke of Oldenburg, and Digby died in Kenya on the 21st of March 1993. So he lived out a full life there. After the war, he went, you know what, Kenya's nice. I've been assigned here. I'm just going to live here. He bought a bit of land. He fought for safaris and conservation and African rights, and then a small uprising brought out. He funded his own private police force and stopped the fucking Kenyan civil war.
I feel like this guy. I have just received a message. The consensus is this guy must be the reason James. This guy must be the basis for James Bond.
He must be.
If he did not wear a full suit as well going into war, and
Just
not
a bowler
like a
hat and an
military
umbrella.
suit. I feel like he
So,
probably wore full suit at some point, honestly. Or while he was going on his bike, he did.
this is a question that I feel like we could debate forever, but I'll leave you with the thought of what's more awesome. The guy who got the last recorded fucking bow and arrow kill in war, which was in World
And,
War
took and
Two,
took and
and
took a broadsword.
took broadsword and bagpipes into battle, last recorded bow and arrow kill of a war, right? Or a guy who disabled a German car, an armored car, with an umbrella.
And led a bayonet charge against tanks wearing a bowler hat.
And
I feel
shielded a medic from bullets using an umbrella. That's like Kingsman.
that is Kingsman. That's
Maybe
it.
they're
He's
all
the
based on him.
inspiration for the Kingsman. But no, I feel
God,
like
rains. My God, Pat, what if it rains?
he is definitely the inspiration for Kingsman. But no, I feel like
I love it.
I feel like no matter what, there is no winner because the winner is the British Empire for having the most batshit crazy people during a war.
The thing is, just if you know that your reputation on the world stage is if somebody looks crazy enough, people are going to assume they're English. That if you forget passwords, and it's important that you remember passwords and shit like that, your solution is to take a bowler hat and an umbrella because you know that instinctively, no matter who they are, the other side of that door, no matter who you need to be dealing with, no matter what language they speak, and no matter who they think you are when they see you, if you then approach them wearing a bowler umbrella in the middle of a world war, they're going to go, yeah, he's a nut, he's English.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna know he's an English gentleman. So, what was his full name for all listeners, so everybody can Google this fucking masterpiece?
You can Google him just by Digby Tatham Water, but it is Major Alison Digby Tatham Water Distinguished Service Order. So it's DSO, technically. It's his full title.
He deserves. He is in Taken Off Air record book now. He is in the
Fair
Taken
Hall
Off
of
Air.
Fame
Yes,
is
the
Digby
Hall of
Tatham
Fame.
Water, Mad Jack Calico.
Yep.
I know, Mad Jack Churchill.
That's the one. It's Mad Jack Churchill.
Mad Jack Churchill. And Jeff, the possibly imaginary mongoose.
Yes. Who has a song named after him?
And whoever was in charge of the marketing operations at Hummer, who's decided that an EV is a good idea and managed to sell it to America despite it being more pollutant than a normal car.
Yeah. Well done, everybody.
They're
So
all
we have a
heroes.
Hall of Fame now.
We should. That should be one of the slides that you put of the Hall
Yeah.
of Fame.
I'm gonna have to make it now. But so for everybody listening, please get in touch with any other Hall of Fame people that you think belong here, such as
And we shall
especially if it's
research and
just
discuss.
yeah, especially if it's just some batshit crazy person like someone who decided he's going to take a pet goose into World War One or something. There will
Could
be
be me in World
stories
War
like
III.
this. Please just let us know. We'll discuss it. We'll research it. We'll just discuss it, and we'll see if they deserve to be in our Hall of Fame, which is now a
Yes.
thing.
Indeed.
And I think that's all for tonight, folks, because we have actually run to an hour and a half this time.
We have. It's been worth it.
It has been worth it.
You would never have known about
Definitely
Digby. Digby.
Exactly. It was worth knowing about Digby. And we leave you with Digby and say thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure, and we will see you all next time. Bye!
Au revoir.